Hello and welcome into the Livestream. We are sorry we are a little late. I was dealing with some microphone troubles. I'm not a big tech guy, and so when my mic isn't working, the best I can do is just unplug it and plug it back in until it hopefully works. But it's working now. Sorry for the delay, but it is week 17 of the NFL season. If you're playing fantasy football, I'm real sorry for you. There are a lot of guys sitting out or on the COVID list this week that won't be in your lineup. But hey, if you still have a Week 17 championship, if you are my uncle and cousin playing each other in our family fantasy championship today, then you've come and tuned into the right show. Got Tones with us as always. Tones, how are you doing today?
Ready to watch a great day of football ahead of us. We got many great things to look forward to. And if you're a fan like me, a fan of a team usually that's in the Buccaneers spot, you're looking forward to Black Monday tomorrow and seeing what happens with the head coaches around the NFL. Something I know you've been interested in talking about.
Yes, I've been very interested in talking about, but honestly, these last couple of days have made me very, very anxious about what's going to happen. I am very anxious. Obviously, being a
Where are we standing with Anthony Lynn?
I honestly do not know at this point. Apparently, Derwin James and Justin Herbert have given Lynn their vote of confidence, and so he possibly could still be the head coach going into 2021. Which honestly, after recent rumors and discussions, I wouldn't be completely happy with it, but I'd be more content with it than other options because I had heard that Urban Meyer has shown interest in the Jags position, but also the Chargers position. And I really, as much as I did not like watching coaching this season, I would definitely not like it if Urban Meyer was our coach. So I feel bad for Jags fans if he does end up being their coach.
Yeah, I've never been all too keen on Urban Meyer, honestly, but he seems like a name that's heavily mentioned in Jaguars head coaching spot. And I heard that the Ohio State coach is mentioned there as well. Maybe Jaguars are thinking of drafting Fields after the performance he put on the other night.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a mistake just because being a Big Ten fan, I've seen all of Fields' games and not just the semifinal game against Clemson. But, you know, I feel like that would be a very Jags thing to do is just to go off the hype and draft a quarterback like that. But yeah, it should be interesting. Yeah, I did hear that. I think they're trying to go after Urban Meyer, but if they didn't go get Meyer, then they would try and get Ryan Day, Ohio State's coach. So that is some interesting discussions. Obviously, there are a lot of positions kind of up for grabs this offseason. Obviously, Doug Marrone is presumed to be just a dead man walking at this point, looking to Jags just looking for a new coach, which understandable. I mean, after they fired their GM,
Doug Marrone should have packed his bags 14 months ago knowing this day was coming. Man, I mean, this guy got lucky to get brought back this year. I thought he was going to get fired last Black Monday. Honestly, I think Jacksonville had its intentions to tank, and they didn't want to hire a new coach, a new regime, knowingly forcing them to tank, knowing fans would be unhappy with how their coaching goes, 1 year in. So I think they're like, Doug, stick around for a year, lose some ball games, earn your payday, and ruin your resume. Thanks, man.
Yeah. I feel like he's one of the perfect coaches to tank with.
Oh, yeah. There's not many guys like him. I mean, we've seen Chip Kelly get sacrificed in doing so in San Fran. We've seen it happen a couple times.
Yeah. Well, first question of the day coming in from Pops from Twitter. Yeah, would you start Mayfield against the spineless second string Steelers, or is he and his big mouth going to? Well, I think this is a big. I mean, this is a big day for Browns fans. They win and they're in. They win and they're in the playoffs, and going up against the second string Steelers. Um, I don't know how many of the defense will be second strings. I know that TJ Watt is going to be resting today, and so at least they won't have him as a pass rusher. Obviously, that brings some questions that if he's being benched, who exactly are they going to have at linebacker since they've dealt with so many injuries in their linebacking core this season? But I I think I would still start Baker Mayfield this week. I mean, he's shown to have boomer bust potential, especially when he goes up against well, I think that getting his receivers back and just knowing how big of a game this is, this will give him kind of that motivation he needs to have a good game. And so I'm still counting on it. He's got his receivers back. He's playing a second string defense, like he said. And, he should get the ball a lot since Mason Rudolph is the Steelers quarterback. So he should have plenty of possessions to get it done.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting AFC day in general to see how the last couple seeds shake out the AFC South and the wild card over there. Obviously, Baker Mayfield needs to play good today. They lost against the Jets, which hurt them, and now against Mason Rudolph and the backups are looking to win. Listen, if they lose to the Jets and then they lose to Mason Rudolph, there's going to be a lot of questions to be asked there. And Kevin Stefanski, first-year head coach, has done a pretty good job. So a lot of questions are going to be pointed to Baker Mayfield. I just haven't seen him overcome the pressure in the NFL yet, and I don't see him overcoming the pressure today. Not saying that the Browns might not win today, but I don't think Baker does too great today. We'll see how he does. He's against a lot of second stringers. Pittsburgh's resting a lot of guys, but to me, leave it up to none other than Baker Mayfield to crap his pants, perhaps, and to have a bad game today.
Yeah, I honestly still don't understand their Jets game. I mean, they brought in a bunch of receivers from the street, but still threw the ball 53 times and only gave Nick Chubb 11 carries. I
Like,
question that game plan.
and they didn't even really look at their wide. I mean, it was all just tight end and running back targets. At that point, you might as well try and run the ball. If it's all underneath stuff anyways, you might as well try and get the run game or those running backs involved a little bit. That confused me as well. And I don't know. It's just maybe the Jets are really legitimate now after beating the Rams and the Browns, two playoff teams perhaps. So maybe, the Jets are for real.
Yeah. I mean, like, obviously the Jets were probably playing for the run, but even so, you've got Nick Chubb who's had some monster games. If you just I don't I don't know. I do worry about the Browns just because they are the Browns. We know just how low they can sink in some big opportunities. But I mean, I think it's funny because there are 5 teams vying for the last 4 playoff spots, I believe. Yeah. Yeah, the 3 wild cards and then the AFC South title. And
Yep.
all 5 could very much win, and we'd be left with a 11-5 team out of the playoffs for the first time since the Matt Castle led Patriots.
And then and then in the NFC we can have a 6-10 and an 8-8. What if we get a 6-10 and an 8-8 team from the NFC, and then we get an 11-5 team snubbed from the AFC?
That'd just be tough. I mean, unfortunately, unlike the college football playoff, there's not really much chance for reform except for maybe switching teams from conferences. But yeah, that is tough. If the Bears and Cardinals both lose, we could very well have an 8-8 wild card team, which would be wild in itself. And the Giants could very well win at the NFC East at a 6-10 record. It's going to be an interesting day to say the least. And I mean, I think the the late Sunday night game it's just the perfect one for this season. Washington versus Philadelphia. We will see just how bad this division winner is in this last game.
Yeah, I just wish they all. I wish the only thing I wish that could have happened is they said, you know what, Goodell decided to have some fun and throw 2 Sunday night games out there and have both these division battles going on at the same time, so we can kind of escalate the fun a little bit. But it's going to be a good one, and Alex Smith is back, and I don't think he's been at any strip clubs the past couple of weeks, so he's probably going to be okay out there today. I think he'll play pretty good. So we'll see if Washington could ride the ship there with him instead of Dwayne Haskins or Heineke or any of these other guys they've had the past week.
Yeah, and I mean, Washington hasn't met Philadelphia since week 1, so both teams have really changed a lot. But also in week 1, the Washington defensive line just absolutely dominated Philadelphia's offensive line. I can't even remember how many times they sacked Carson Wentz week 1, but I know it was very eye-opening.
Speaking of Carson Wentz, did you hear the news this morning? According to ESPN's Chris Mortensen, it is expected that Carson Wentz is expected to ask for a trade this offseason.
I did not hear that news this morning. I did hear a couple weeks ago, like when he first got benched, that he was talking about a trade, but I didn't know they actually went to the Eagles front office and asked for one. That's really going to be interesting, especially since, I mean, right now his value is probably at its very lowest it has been over his entire career after this.
It's even to the point where it says, not to cut you off, but now I'm reading Carson Wentz is expected to be a healthy inactive tonight even.
Ooh.
It's gotten that bad in Philly.
Oh my gosh, that is a guy that I thought would be possibly ending his season as the number 11th fantasy quarterback on the season is now not even going to be active for their final game. That makes me wonder, who is their back? Oh, it's Nate Sudfeld.
Nate Sudfeld.
Wow. Wow. The guy from Indiana is their backup quarterback over their starter at the beginning. So man, the NFC East is a bad place to be a starter in. I mean, obviously Dak had a season-ending injury. Carson Wentz is looking for a trade. Dwayne Haskins was released last week, and Daniel Jones got ate up by the turf monster.
Yeah. I mean, this division's quarterback carousel has been wild. I don't know who's going to be still. You could put names in hats for any of these teams starting quarterbacks heading into next year and draw one, and they might not be starting again by this time next year. So it's like, with Dak's injury, with Dalton being a free agent again, obviously Ben DiNucci didn't show great promise, and then Gilbert. So you never know what's going to happen in Dallas. And as you said, you described every other quarterback situation to a T. It's just kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. And I know we touched base on the Big Ten coaches a little bit earlier, but now Adam Schefter is tweeting as well. Big Ten coaching update. Northwestern head coach Pat Fitzgerald is open to taking NFL head coaching interviews, and Ohio State's Ryan Daly is not. So I guess Ryan Daly is taking his name out of the hat, but Pat Fitzgerald seems to be a big hot commodity. I don't know if you know too much about Pat, but that'd be an interesting fit.
Yeah, I know he's been at Northwestern for a while at this point. Yeah, he's been their head coach since 2006. He's had kind of up and down years. I know as of recently they've been one of the better teams in the Big Ten. So I don't know. It's always interesting for me, like coaches who have been there for at least a decade are now like trying to get NFL jobs. I mean, I kind of get it. I mean, you want to move up, you want to see if you can make more money, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like college coaches, they find their niche and just want to stay there, but
Yeah, I wonder if he'll be one of those guys who's going to be, more of a college fit guy, because we do see that time to time too. Some of these guys take the leap of faith, and then it turns out that they probably should have stayed in college. But then, some come to the NFL and have their big success. So I guess you never know. It'll be interesting to see. A lot of coaches, I think we're at what? 3 openings right now already between Atlanta, Detroit, and I'm missing one.
Houston.
Yeah, Atlanta, Detroit, and Houston. And then we got Doug Marrone probably on his way out. Anthony Lynn, 50-50.
Yeah, Adam Gase on his
Adam
way out.
Gase, you could tell he's as good as gone. You never know. I'm hearing Doug Peterson's safe, but I guess you technically never know. I mean, I'd guess 6 to 7 head coach openings. You never know what Denver elects to do over there.
Yeah, I've heard even some things swirling about possibly Mike Zimmer being out in Minnesota.
I could see that. They've had a couple disappointing years. I've said it before. I wouldn't be shocked to see if Mike Zimmer's gone, and then you never know what the Bears decide to do either. Say they miss the playoffs. I don't think Nagy's gone, but you never know if they do decide to pull the trigger and let him go if they do miss the playoffs.
Oh man, I even forgot about Nagy. I mean, being in playoff contention kind of gets you to forget about some coaches' bad years, but I mean, I could see Matt Nagy possibly being one of those few coaches who actually makes the playoffs the same year that they get fired afterwards.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, they were looking like they were going to make the playoffs really early on in the season, but obviously not so solid now. So I could really see that happening.
Yeah, it's just a lot of interesting stuff happening, and Mitch Trubisky, I wonder where he'll go. Maybe New England it's expected now that Cam Newton is going to leave New England. They're saying, I don't know. We got an interesting offseason ahead of us. A lot of these teams have a lot of moves to make at quarterback, coach.
Yeah, quarterback, coach, and I mean, I was just thinking last night, like, I wonder if teams will start kind of taking Philadelphia's model and start getting quarterbacks for short-term contracts and stuff. See if they can get rookie quarterbacks on rookie deals, so that whenever and start just treating them like running backs. Because who wants to pay a quarterback all that money and take up half their salary cap with it? Because I mean, looking at the draft class, like every year, there's a handful of good quarterbacks who possibly could start in the NFL, but there's even less starting positions that they could be drafted to. So I don't know. It was just an interesting thought I had last night watching who was it, Sam Howell and Kellen Mond dueling against each other in the Texas A&M and North Carolina game.
Man, North Carolina had so many chances to catch some long ones from Howell at the end there, and a couple of those long ones slipped away. I may or may not have had Sam Howell over 255 passing yards, but that's a story for another day. But I do agree with you. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know. The thing with quarterbacks is, though, there's always going to be such a supply and demand market for them. Like, the minute a guy like once hits the market, there's going to be a million teams lined up for his services, even though he hasn't shown too much this year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with a couple of these quarterbacks. Phillip Rivers might retire. I don't know. We'll see what happens with Jimmy G.
Yeah, see what happens there. I mean, it's always going to be a rotating door. I mean, every season in the NFL, there's got to be someone who's the worst quarterback in the league, because I mean, that's just how it works. Someone has to be the worst, and so you've always got to be looking to upgrade at positions that you're the worst in the league in. I mean, you can have the best defensive line one year and keep all the same guys around, but if they start slipping and become the worst defensive line 3 or 4 years down the road, then you got to look for changes. Same with quarterbacks. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting offseason. I think week 17, a lot of guys are playing for their jobs. Like you said, Mitchell Trubisky, I mean, he's kind of had a little bit of a renaissance in these past couple weeks, kind of leading Chicago on this kind of winning streak. So, but honestly, if he doesn't finish it off, and can't get the Bears into the playoffs, I see absolutely zero chance of him coming back next year.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really. Yeah, I agree with you though for sure on the Trubisky factor. I don't really see him coming back if Chicago doesn't get into the playoffs. It seemed like Chicago was ready to write him off, so I doubt they'd bring him back. And if they don't get in this year, he's only made it 1 year in his first 4 years there. So not a ton of success behind his name to go behind that. So I'm not sure what's going to happen in Chicago. All I do know is a win against Green Bay would make things a lot easier today for Mitch Trubisky, as then they'd get into the playoffs. And then if the playoffs come, that contract, even if it's a 1 year, $25 million contract, that's a lot better than what you would have been looking at a couple months ago, probably a 1 year, $500,000 deal, something like that, somewhere veterans minimum, just to compete for that backup job. So I think Mitch Trubisky has become the true winner over these past couple of weeks. One way or another, he's gotten his name back into the quarterback conversation for the Bears, something that his name wasn't a part of a couple months ago. And I don't think that he's the answer there long term necessarily, but I could see the Bears doing what you said, Pride. I could see them bringing back Trubisky on a 1 year, $22 million deal or so, and then drafting a young quarterback, like a mid-round guy. And we're going to see a lot of these quarterbacks, maybe a Zach Wilson type falls a little bit. Maybe we see a, Howell or Mon type. Whatever the case seems to be, a mid-round guy might go to the Bears. Maybe Trubisky is re-signed for 1 year. If he's not getting the job done, at least the Bears have a young alternative to turn to, as the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts this season. So, that's interesting. We'll see what happens there, but the Bears are put in a very interesting scenario.
Yeah, I know. I saw people on Twitter making fun of Ryan Pace, probably looking at Sam Howell's game and being like, oh boy, another North Carolina quarterback.
And he looks a little bit like Mitch did in college too. He's got that little facial hair. He's got that little butchiness to him. He's got the running ability with the lob passes. There's some physique and some athletic skills that portray him and Trubisky to almost be too identical. So if I'm the Bears, I just I might check, and not to, correlate two quarterbacks together, but the first project from North Carolina didn't go as smooth as it should as the first round quarterback goes. So maybe say no on Mr. Sam Howell.
Yeah, I mean, the positive thing if they did draft him was that they'd have two quarterbacks who can run the same system. So,
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Another question from Pops from Twitter. He asked, the Bengals have somehow won 2 in a row with Burrow being out. They find themselves as big underdogs to the Ravens at home. Do they have a chance to win today? I want to say yes, just because Baltimore has been dealing with some injuries and COVID concerns. I mean, they have actually a lot of guys who are going to be out today. Let me just pull up a list. Calais Campbell, Marlon Humphrey, Mark Ingram, Yannick Ngakoue, Jimmy Smith, Willie Snead, Marcus Peters, Gus Edwards, TJ
Holy
Fluke.
crap.
So they've got a lot of starters being
out.
All
on COVID?
No, not all on COVID. Most of them just have injuries that I guess they're going to be holding them out. I guess they're confident enough in Lamar Jackson and J.K.
Let's
Dobbins.
Go Bengals, baby. Let's go Bengals.
Yeah, I guess they're confident enough in Lamar Jackson and J.K. Dobbins running all day on them. I know the Bengals also have some injuries. I believe Mike Daniels is injured for them, even though I think his playing time has kind of been down. I think William Jackson is also in concussion protocol for the Bengals, and so that's one of their best secondary pieces gone. So, I mean, the Bengals have some injuries, but not on the scale of the Ravens. So, I honestly would not be surprised if Brandon Allen pulled some more magic out of his hat, and was able to get another upset victory to finish out the season. And ruin the Bengals' chances of drafting Penei Sewell just a little bit more.
And the last time the Bengals and Ravens played, the score was 27-3. The Ravens did win. However, the Bengals held Lamar Jackson to 2 rushes for 3 yards, okay, and 180 passing yards only. And they held Mark Ingram, who's out today. He was their leading rusher. And then, Dobbins didn't even get Dobbins got 1 carry for 34 yards in that game. So pretty much that game, they did a tremendous job in holding Baltimore in check. Marquise Brown and Andrews had okay games, but pretty much Lamar Jackson combined for 183 yards through the air and the ground. If the Bengals could do that at home today, Zach Taylor, we mentioned hot seats. Not that he's on the hottest of seats, but in the back of his mind, he's probably thinking, I went 1-15 last year. I have the chance to finish well below 500 this year. He's probably not the safest of safe. I mean, he's probably not on the hottest of seats at the same time. But if you go 1-15 and then you say he loses today, they'd be 4-11-1. That means he'd be 5-26-1 through 2 years. He's very well in the hot seat. So to me, this game, the Bengals aren't overlooking. They're injured without Mike Daniels. I believe he landed on the COVID list. Joe Mixon's obviously out for the year. Joe Burrow's out for the year. Who knows between Brandon Allen and Finley who ends the game at quarterback? All I know is perhaps the Bengals are going to be a tough out. They just beat the Steelers and they just went on the road to beat the Texans. Although they don't have a great chance of winning, I wouldn't rule this 99.9% chance for the Ravens to win. I think the Bengals have a little bit of life of hope. I think we'll know by halftime what the score is, if they're still in the game or not. But I wouldn't rule the Bengals out today. I think Zach Taylor is fighting for his job and fighting for his team to be respectable. And the Bengals don't need to tank today. They already have Joe Burrow. There's no reason for the Bengals to purposely lose a football game to try and get a quarterback, so to speak. So we'll see what happens, but I think the Bengals do play good, and I didn't know all those Ravens were outpriced, so I like their chances a little more after hearing that.
Yeah, I wonder if this will be a day that Samaje Perine shows his potential against the Ravens in the rushing game. Then it's going to be a lot more interesting thanks to the Ravens' injuries. And I mean, the Ravens do need this win to get into the playoffs. They're one of the 4 teams who are in the inside looking out, and if they lose, the Colts will probably beat the Jaguars, so they could take their spot. And so then the Ravens would be hoping that one of the other 3 teams loses.
We got a crazy. What's your thoughts on that, Pride? Out of the Bills, the Bengals, or out of the Bills, the Steelers against Browns. The Bills play the Dolphins. The Bengals play the Ravens. The Colts play the Jaguars. The Texans play the Titans. How do you see these matchups going? Who do you think ekes in the AFC? We seem like we're giving Bengals a puncher's chance today. How do you like the Bills' chances? And the Bills' inactives just got released. It seems like they're playing to win today. Their only inactives are Cole Beasley, Tre'Davious White, Jerry Hughes, and Mario Addison of note. But other than that, they're going balls to the wall, it seems.
Yeah, I am kind of really liking the Bills' chances of beating the Dolphins, especially since their defense is mostly maintained. I mean, obviously Tre'Davious White is out. That might hurt their secondary. But, with Tua being the guy for the Dolphins, they don't have their knight in shining armor and Ryan Fitzpatrick on the bench since he's on the COVID list and will not be able to play today. And so it'll be interesting. It'll be an interesting game since we've not seen Tua really been able to jumpstart this offense over the past couple weeks. It'll be interesting if he can lead his team to the playoffs against a stout Bills defense, or if, I mean, in a great comedic world, I think it would be fun to see if Tua does so poorly and can't get the offense started that Brian Flores just puts in Malcolm Perry at quarterback for the Dolphins. I mean, honestly, honestly, this season, what I've been most disappointed in is I haven't seen the option run that much. I was kind of hoping in San Francisco, if CJ Beathard got hurt, that they would put in Jerick McKinnon since he ran the triple option down at Georgia Southern. That would have been fun to watch, but I don't know. That's more wishful thinking on my part. But yeah, I really think that if there was, I really believe that all 5 teams could win. But if there was one team that was going to lose, I think it would have to be the Dolphins against the Bills.
Yeah, I like the Dolphins' chances of losing that game. Winning it, and their inactives just came out as well. It looks like Jakeem Grant's out for them, DeAndre Washington's out for them, Camus Grieger Hill is out for them, as well as Kirk Merritt, Adam Pankey, Benito Jones. They got a couple, and as you said, Ryan Fitzpatrick on the COVID list. The Dolphins are missing a couple big names. This is a wacky week 17 with COVID, a lot of moving parts, a lot of guys in and out on the inactives list. A lot of things to watch out for today, as we keep mentioning.
Dang, that's tough. Their backup kicker is out, and Camus Grugier Hill. That's really all I can. That's really all I think of when I hear his name. Was that he was like a kick. He kicked off a couple times for the Eagles when their punter got hurt.
He went to my alumni, so that's the only reason why keep tabs on him a little bit. So
yeah, interesting. We got another question coming in here from Joseph Areola. He says, "Great job by both of you this season. It was fun." Thanks. Thanks for sticking around this entire season. I know this week 17, not a lot of people are playing championships, so thanks for listening to us, and I hope that we helped you out win some games this season. I mean, that's really what we're here for, is to just help people out. I mean, I know I don't help myself out that much. I'll say things. I don't know
it's
why.
hard.
Yeah. I don't know why. I always draft teams trying to be similar because I don't want to cheer for like a bunch of guys on Sunday. And so sometimes my early season picks don't go very well, and my season doesn't go very well. But I'm glad that on Sundays I can just talk about everyone who I think is going to be good, even if I can't get my hands on them myself for my leagues.
Yeah. So what's your official standings looking like when it's all said and done? How many playoffs did you make? How many championships, if any, did you bring home? How is Pride's fantasy year in review looking if we were to break it down?
I believe out of my how many I believe out of my like 7 leagues that I've paid a lot of attention to, I can't remember, 6 or 7. I don't know. I made 4 playoffs. I lost in the first round. One of them, I made it to the semifinals in 3 of them, and I lost all 3 of the semifinals. I did not make it to a single final this season, which was tough since last year I think I made the playoffs in 6 or 7 leagues, but I only made it to the finals in one of those. So I don't know. I guess I'm just not good at finishing it out in the playoffs. I'm Billy Bean. My goal is to get my teams to the playoffs. From then, it's just all up to chance.
You know what they say, right? If it were easy, everybody would be doing it. So, yeah, I don't think, I don't find those common. It's hard to win fantasy, man. Everyone thinks it's easy, but excuse me. Ooh, little sneeze attack there, but it ain't easy. It ain't easy. I won this year, and I came in second in a couple, and I think I made playoffs in 5 out of 8, but only brought home one of the trophies. So it ain't easy, man.
Yeah, I remember in our league of record, this really made me mad. I barely lost in the semifinals, thanks in part to Devontae Adams having one of his worst games of the season. And then the next week in the 3rd place game, I scored 150 something points. And I looked at the championship game, and both of the guys in the championship, the winner scored like 97 points, and the loser scored like 80 something.
That
And
is crazy.
that's always frustrating when you're playing in like a consolation game and you outscore the guys who are actually playing in like the semifinals or championship by a lot, and you're just like, if I was there, I would have won.
Do you do you have any relevance in fantasy today? Like, I know I have 2 leagues where there's still high points to be had today. You know, I could still win high points in leagues today for week 17. Do you have any leagues of importance today, or is your season kind of all but over?
No, my season's all but over. Most of the leagues that I'm in just run through week 16 and don't even have high points. I believe there's only 3 leagues right now that I actually have like even games in. All of them on ESPN. 2 of them are in public leagues that I joined with my kind of meme teams where I mean those aren't looking too good, but also in my family league I have a week 17 consolation game. I really want to win it just because I think if I win this game, then I'll have ended my season on a 10-game win streak. So even though
Wow.
even though I was right outside the playoffs, just didn't start my win streak soon enough, it'll feel good if I can just finish it out strong.
Oh yeah, if you could win 10 in a row, I mean, why not go out there and win 10 in a row and, finish your season strong? Is it a keeper league or no?
No, it's just a redraft league, so it's just cause I'm I'm also seeing if I can win one more game for my initials team.
How are
Thanks
you
to
looking in that one today?
um about like 50-50. I mean, it's a nice help that I got CJ Beathard for these last 2 weeks. Finally have a quarterback with initials, but
What do you what are you thinking today? And who do you think gets in between the Cardinals and the Bears?
I I really want the Bears to, just because I have some family in Chicago, but honestly, it seems to be an uphill battle. I mean, I know earlier this week the Packers were kind of talking about how they weren't going to take this game lightly. They wanted to beat the Bears, um, which is funny because I believe who said that was David Bakhtiari, and just yesterday or the day before he got injured during practice, injured his knee, and so he will not be playing this game for the Packers, which stinks for him, but it's also kind of funny since he was the one who really had those comments of really wanting to beat the Bears, which I mean, I don't hold it against him. I mean, you're playing your rival, you want to beat them, but I don't know. I find it kind of funny. I think, but even still, without their starting left tackle, I think the Packers are going to. I think the Packers do have the odds-on favorite of winning this game, which I really do believe that they can. I think the Cardinals playing against a backup quarterback for the Rams are going to have an easier game, and so in my heart, I want the Bears to win, but I think that the Cardinals are going to pull it out and beat the Rams, and then have the Bears lose against the Packers. So
That would be
that's
crazy if the Cardinals eke their way in, and then Bears have been looking good lately. But that's the beauty of Week 17, man. It comes down to this.
yeah, yeah. It'd be tough for my uncle seeing his team get so close to the playoffs and just ultimately coming up short again. I remember I remember a couple years ago I was at their house and saw them lose in, I believe it was week 13. They lost in week 17 to the Packers, and the Packers took their playoff spot on a wide open Randall Cobb touchdown. That was tough to watch them go through. Uh,
Man, between that, the AFC, the NFC East division winner. There's a lot to look forward to today. Who do you think gets in the NFC East? Do you think Washington takes care of business, or do you think something else shakes it up, do you think Cowboys or Giants have a chance?
I think that Washington will take care of business and be the AFC's champion. Because, yeah, I mean, it really does come down to that game. That's why I like that it's kind of the Sunday night game. Even though it's the worst division in football, it's just so entertaining to watch. And so it'll be interesting seeing the Cowboys and Giants game, because whoever wins that game will need Washington to lose again. So it'll just be, I'm sure they'll be glued to their TVs watching the Washington and Eagles game. But I think in the end, I want to say the Giants will beat the Cowboys, but I think Washington will beat the Eagles, so it'll all be for naught for New York. And unfortunately, that'll just mean that's another 7-9 team that gets in the playoffs. No new territory there, with the Seahawks doing that a little over a decade ago, almost a decade ago.
Crazy how fast damn time goes.
Yeah, but it's still going to be interesting seeing another losing record team in the playoffs. So yeah, I think it's going to be a fun game. Honestly, I'm glad that Alex Smith is okay, but I would have loved to see St. Louis Battlehawk Taylor Heineke take the reins.
Yes, that would have been awesome, seeing an AAF guy for the Rams balling out today and an XFL guy balling out today for, the Washington football team. It's going to be crazy. I think Washington ultimately ends up sneaking in. That Dallas Giants game is going to be a fun one, though, because both those teams are obviously like, hold on, we're going to try and win for the playoffs here. So, and the Buccaneers are very likely to play the division winner of that division in two scenarios. If the Bucs win or the Rams lose, the Bucs get the 5 seed and play the NFC East. So it's looking like that'll probably happen one way or another. I'm very interested to see, are we going to get Andy Dalton? Are we going to get Daniel Jones? Are we going to get Alex Smith? Who is going to be? And I don't know if you heard, Pride, but the Bucs got hit hard with COVID. Devin White actually tested positive for COVID, and he's probably out of wild card weekend next week. And then Shaq Barrett and Steve McClendon are on the COVID list as well.
Ooh, dang, Steve McClendon. I like him. And I mean, yeah, it's tough for the Buccaneers. And also, I'd be very wary if I was you, if you had a chance of playing the NFC East winner, because I think, at least to my knowledge, every losing team, even though I'm pretty sure there's only been 2, every losing team that's been to the playoffs have won their first round matchup. Obviously, the Seahawks beat the Saints
in Carolina, right?
2010. Yeah, and then Carolina beat the Cardinals in 2013. But to be fair, the Carolina Panthers did play can't remember his first name, but Finley, who was the 3rd string quarterback for the Cardinals at that point, because Carson Palmer and Drew Stanton got injured right before the playoffs. And so the Cardinals were down to their 3rd string QB, but still 2-0 for losing record teams in the first round of the playoffs. They both got destroyed in the second round, but first round, that's when you're playing. So for your sake, I hope the Bucs can buck that trend, but also you might not even have to worry about it if you lose today. But
I just want to go 11-5. I mean, the last time the Bucs won 11 games was, I believe, 2006 maybe, or 05. Like, it's been almost 20 damn years since the Bucs won 11 games. The last time they won double-digit games was 2010. I want to even one up that. I want the Bucs to win today, and hopefully they could get in clean. But yeah, I mean, Shaq Barrett, Devin White, they both have more than 8 sacks and 60 tackles this season. They're both having really good years. So those are kind of Debbie Downers of losses. But hey, we'll see what happens. I think I like the Bucs' chances today. I think they could go out and really have a pretty good chance of getting to 11-5. There's going to be a lot of interesting things happening around the league today. So, man, I'm just excited to see how things shake up, how things go. and we got a hell of a week 17 to buckle up for.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really going to be interesting. I mean, because also thinking about there, even though I think the biggest playoff race is in the AFC with 5 teams vying for 4 spots. I mean, also like you brought up, the Bears and Cardinals fighting for the last wild card seed for the NFC and obviously the NFC East, but also in the NFC, I believe the Packers have not wrapped up the number 1 seed yet,
You are
correct?
correct. You are
Yeah.
correct.
The Saints and Seahawks are both kind of also in contention for that at 11-4, and so that's also something to keep your eye out for. And also, Tones, how do you feel about the new playoff format of one bye, one bye for the top seed, and then everyone else has to play a first round game?
I've been back and forth on it for a while now. At first I liked it, then I didn't like it. Now I find myself to like it again. Although I think 2 teams are deserving, I really think one team makes it that much more deserving to get the bye week. When there's only one team that gets it out of each conference, you'd think that team really gets a pat on the back for earning that 1 seed of Bravo, whereas when 2 teams get it, that 1 seed doesn't get as much of an advantage. And then 7 teams getting in is nice as well. I believe teams like me and you, like the Chargers and Bucks, who oftentimes are out of the playoffs more so than in the playoffs, it gives us a better chance to root for our teams to get into the playoffs as well with that 7 seed. I'll tell you what, though, Pride, I am not a fan of what's going to happen next year or what's going to come next year. It seems like that the NFL is going to expand to 17 games in a season. I don't think I like that too much. I kind of like the 16 games and the 17-week schedule as is. I like the playoff changes. I'm not a fan of these schedule changes. How about you?
Yeah, I just as a math minor, I don't like odd numbers. I don't like 17 games. I I don't know why. I like the chances of going 8-8 just because it's even. You're not net positive or net loss, so it's nice. And I mean, we've seen how many injuries can get accumulated in 1 week, and so adding another week on top of an already brutal schedule, I don't like what that does to players' health. I don't like that. And also, I mean, I like everyone being on even footing, and when you're given an extra game, that's going to lead to more broken records, but it's going to be like, it's not really fair since they got an extra game to break those
Right.
records. So
And
yeah,
listen to that. You just spoke of injuries. I'm reading a tidbit here that said few coaches have had to overcome more players lost to injury than the Chargers' Anthony Lynn. Entering today's regular season finale against the Chiefs, Chargers player projected to start on opening day have combined to miss 109 games. So Pride, there you go. Injuries, more of them coming your way next year.
yeah, the Chargers. I mean, also the Eagles in past years have had to deal with a lot of injuries. The 49ers this season obviously have had a ton of injuries, so I just feel like adding an extra game on top of that is just asking for even more trouble.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but as for the playoffs, I've decided that I really like them, just mainly for the point as the last time the Chargers made the playoffs, just 2 years ago in 2018, they were 12-4, the same record as the Chiefs, but because of tiebreaker, the Chiefs got the 1 seed and the Chargers got the 5th seed. And so despite being 12-4, they didn't get a bye, but the Patriots at 11-5 did get a bye that season, which ultimately led them to the Super Bowl and the worst Super Bowl ever win against the Rams. And so that's one reason why I like it, because there are teams who, they don't have that good of a record. Well, I mean, 11-5 is still a good record, but it's when it's the 3rd best record in the conference, I feel like that bye is unearned. So I'm glad that now the best team in the conference just gets a bye instead of having the best and the third best, or even if maybe sometimes the two wild card teams could be better, and so it'd be the fourth best team in the conference getting
Yeah, that's a
by.
great point. That's a great point. I didn't even think of it that way, but I'm sure we've seen plenty of times where a 10-6 or 11-5 team get a bye, and then you probably have an 11-5 or 12-4 wild card team, and it's like, what the hell? The NFL kind of ties their hands behind their back themselves sometimes.
Yeah, and so that's really the main reason why I like the change in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's why I like it too. I mean, the NFL's done a couple different things. One thing I would like to see change pride is overtime. I hate that it's only 10 minutes. It feels like there's just not enough time to me in an NFL overtime. It seems like by the time the first team's done with the football, it's already down to like 5 minutes. But okay, now I'm reading as well. Late news from Michael Girardi. My understanding is that Matt Barkley will get meaningful snaps per source. Starter Josh Allen is just 40 yards away from breaking the team's single-season passing records. Bills also following similar formula to last year's Week 17 when they rested key starters, and Girardi added Trey White, Jerry Hughes, Mario Addison are on the inactives list. Pride, this is big news coming out of Buffalo. Not good for other AFC teams hoping that the Dolphins go down.
Yeah, it is not good for the Colts playoff hopes since they're the main team. The Colts just need one of the four teams to lose so that they can take their spot. But I mean, the Dolphins, they had, I believe, the best chance of losing to the Bills. But now with that news, I'm not sure about that. And now I'm more confident in having an 11-5 team in the Colts who miss out on the playoffs.
My thing is, I feel like it's like watching a heart rate, watching this playoff situation. There's news that have broke since the 10 o'clock hour that we've talked about that have increased the Colts' chances. There's news that has brought their chances down a little bit, then back up. Like the Ravens punters missing today. Then you got one reporter saying the Bills are going to go for the 2 seed all out today. And then you got one reporter saying Matt Barkley is going to get meaningful snaps today. I just don't know what the hell to believe, but we're about an hour away from watching it all unfold.
Yeah. And kind of looking at the schedule right now, I'm a little upset. I'm a little upset at the scheduling of this. I would have liked to see the Titans and Texans game and the Jaguars and Colts game flex to the early slate of games, just so you'd have all 5 meaningful AFC matchups being played out right then. I mean, obviously, with the Colts and Titans still playing at the same time, you'll have the AFC division, the 2 games that'll affect the division winner of that going right then. But I mean, it feels more intriguing if you've got, since the Colts are the odd man out right now, if you've got, the Colts playing against the Jaguars, presumably they'll beat them with Mike Glennon still at the helm, but you also have them kind of like struggling, looking up at the scoreboard, seeing how the Bills, Browns, and
Bills,
and,
Browns,
Ravens,
and some Ravens, Bengals.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously they'll still be looking up if the Titans are getting it, but also, if one of those 3 teams loses in the early slate, then it's a little more relieved on the Colts' part. I mean, obviously they've still got to go out there and beat the Jaguars, but I'm not as worried about them being Jaguars as I am about other teams. But even so, it'll be interesting. It'll also be interesting to see how the Texans team responds after JJ Watt's comments earlier this week about just kind of that team morale. And so I'm really looking forward to it. I'm still glad that they did get it right and have the Rams Cardinals and the Bears Packers game in the afternoon slot, so that we both see that playoff race unfolding at the same time. So,
yeah, I don't know. I'm excited though. There's too many games today for too little of time slots. Every game should have their own time slot thing today. No, but it's going to be a fun day. I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah. really glad I have Red Zone, so it'll just keep switching back and forth.
Yeah. Let's hope it does a good job today.
Yeah. Well, that's really all I've got. Do you have anything else you want to talk about, Tones?
Real quick, I just want to say thanks everyone for sticking with us. 17 weeks, whether it was Q and Pride on here or Pride and myself. I think that we've brought you guys some pretty good knowledge, some pretty good content, and I can't wait to do it again next year, week in and week out. Hopefully, throughout the off season as well. You guys continue to listening to the TimeSkew podcast and all their TimeSkew podcast network affiliates. You could go to timeskew.com. Find the TimeSkew podcast for fantasy advice. And then there's other great podcasts as well for any type of sports fans. They have baseball podcast, ultimate frisbee podcast, disc golf podcast, I think wrestling just a bunch of cool podcasts. Make sure you stay in tune with TimeSkew all year long. Thanks so much, guys. It's been great. Pride, I've had a lot of fun, and it looks like today is going to be interesting. You have the NFC East going on. You got the Bucks and Saints dealing with COVID. We've talked about the AFC South and AFC wild card. You got the Bears, Cardinals, and Rams playing musical chairs. Fun day of football, man.
Yeah, fun day of football. Gotta love week 17. Thank you guys for listening today, and thanks for listening this entire season. We are less than an hour away from kickoff on the final week of the season. Thanks once again, and see you next year.
Good luck, guys.